First thing this morning after coffee. Mark this for reference. Lovelorn blender of midnight color in every unstable gender, beguiling multiple reflections from a variety of mirrors, gilded, gothic to pocket. Listen. There are children raised by wolves who never learn to speak, who discern in your words only the meat on your breath. Shifts in perception shatter all vessels to splinters. No one escapes this generation with immortality untarnished. Fragments invade the bloodstream through soles of the feet, lodge dangerously in the porches of your heart, bearing bits of the message in a bottle you dropped into what seemed an infinite sea, now found to be small, circular, and not particularly blue.
Very nice.
Robert Hunter, lyricist for the Grateful Dead, partner of Mr. Garcia, who we lost last week. And I was laughing and being sad at the same time. Anybody that knows me well enough knows that they've had to listen to me going, have you heard this? You should listen to this for 50 years now. And one of those poor people was Mr. Bill Corbett, who teased me mercilessly for 20 years about my affectations with the dead and my love of all things Garcia and so on and so forth. And this went on and on and on. At any unpredictable moment, all of a sudden it would be launched across the table, Franco and his fucking Grateful Dead stuff, right? Well, one summer Mr. Corbett went out to Naropa Institute to be in residence out there for a little bit, and I got a postcard suddenly from the Naropa Institute from Bill. Said, "Dear Michael, am here, so's Hunter and wife. Marvelous, marvelous people. Great poet, exclamation point. Great gardeners, all around wonderful people, heading into town to buy Birkenstocks now." Well, Bill. So I'm dedicating this season to Robert Hunter because it was to experience his poetry in situation, from, I guess my first show was in late '68 on out, and we all trying to make sense of the lyrics, and the experience of those lyrics when they were delivered right were wonderful. And then finding out that he was actually a wonderful poet and a decent person as well. So, and that brings me to today, with us, with our community, our generation of people. Both of you are here today in my head because you meet the prime directive, which is activity across broad spectrums of work and involvement with people and presence at readings. This is how we met, was at a reading, and Suzanne is now, taking over the yearly poetry marathon to keep that going. She's doing her own artwork, which is also literary based, because you're etching in glass, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen.
We're making glass globes with poems around them.
And so at every point that I've ever touched with you, you're always working on something and always, exploring new places and just nudging at the edge. And you have hit the all-time mark because she's the only person I know that did what we all should be doing, which is to go to London and see the Blake show. We need to talk about that because it is one of those primary things that's going on around us right now. She has a new book which has come. I haven't seen. It's just come in the door. It's available for sale for anybody.
It's out now.
From Brenda Ijima down at the Portable Press at Yo-Yo Labs, and it is a delight to welcome you here as a reader for the first time. Suzanne Mercury. You are in charge now, right? I'm done.
I've just got my timer on. I don't want to go over time or anything. I think I will sit. I'm going to read some poems from Hand to Earth, which is my new chapbook, which just came out with the Portable Press, and I'm so grateful to Brenda Ijima, who unfortunately can't be here, but I hope she'll come up another time, maybe at Harvard or something like that. She's a brilliant person to work with. I just love her and, recommend her press. She's got so many great writers that she's published, and I'm just, I feel like a little kid at Christmas every time I picked this up when the package came in the mail. I was like, yes, rip it open now! And I still can't get over that wonderful feeling, and I'm just so happy. So, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for, hosting this wonderful event. All right, this is called Beneath the Tree Canopy, Looking Up. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Really good. The bridge was a chasm below, and below it a chasm, and below it a bridge, and a burnt down candle gazing upward. Snow and glass and shadow and forest, and her gazing upward, below, then above, and flying upward. Wind caught her arms, as if gazing into the snow falling all around her, as if could lift her, as if until she felt she was flying. Evening changed into black feathers, letters on white wings, undone and becoming. A new life began. This was actually a cutout poem that I made from scraps from an old copy of Anna Karenina. I chopped up the pieces and
You did a lot of editing.
anyway. This is another tree poem. It's called Fortingall Yew. And the Fortingall Yew is the oldest tree in Scotland. And it's believed to be 5,000 to 9,000 years old. Fortingall Yew. Happiness is in the black needles fallen to wet ground, blown down by the rain, each one a blade, a mind, a star hidden in the palm of the hand at the end of this gazing of light. A star, no, a memory of a star, shining just a step from the wind's intelligence and into a world unknown, annealed in black leaves and light, a life light, and bright as the thread of, there it is, a flight of black that I cannot see, there in the wet branches, undefeated, catching the moon. This poem is called Honeysuckle and Bees. One of the things I've been exploring this year is I'm an apprentice beekeeper.
Oh, yeah?
I don't have my own bees yet, but I've been working with other beekeepers and helping them with their hives and their harvests and kind of learning the ropes slowly but surely, and I've been stung so many times this summer, getting used to it. Anyway, actually mostly bees are very tame, but anyway, honeysuckle and bees. Fringed red and gold with summer, the honeysuckle vine takes to give. It is, all of a sudden, a scarlet particulate against the sky, illuminated by backscattered light, straddling the earth's shadow. It is so called, flaming and shaking the other, either bleeding from this different year. Its scent could cover the hemisphere, could remake glaciers in the mind's expanse, encompassing night in a smear of silver, a soul in the sky, unensnared, leaving itself filled with bees by morning. Their wings brand new, intimate artifacts that will carry away twice their weight in nectar. Even now, even after all of this, they are the desire path, soaring past the century. This is called Skeleton Flower, and it's a real flower. When it grows in the woods, at the roots of trees, and when it rains and they get wet, the petals will become transparent, and all you will see is the veins of the petals and nothing else. it's a very weird little
Where
flower.
is it native to?
Not in this area, I think it's more in the south and really, hot, murky areas, it's humid, it thrives on humidity. So I think you'd find it more in the south and South America and Central America as well. But anyway, skeleton flower. Darkness is the color of rain and of ghosts smelling of pitch pine, softened by unending rivulets, shining as fingertips trailing on glass, breaking through dust-covered light bulbs, all for the bright filaments left glowing at the center. Bright veins in the otherwise dark. They say the skeleton flower's petals turn clear as cellophane in the rain. They vanish just like that and turn into astral projections of themselves, ectoplasm in drizzle. All you can see is their corolla forming, the whirl of their drinking, and the water and the veins in the petals curling into a dark gray asemic writing. All you can see, a connected disconnection, in fluorescence winding, down to the intricacy and determination of its feathery roots. A shadow shaped by the love we lose and have instead set always at the periphery, within sight, corpuscle flickering. This poem is called Stars Within. I've been writing a lot about planets. Stars within. They say the universe is eternal and stars perishable. The body is a crucible filled with ashes and snow, bones at the bottom of the mind, vertebrae in black earth, tangled as fingers and roots. A star is a body outlined by light in the doorway, no longer there. Large as the sun inside the mind, lost in the footprints of birds. Rain raises gray rings in the planet's bone dust, and the world ago is no longer the world ago. It is a revenant of collective memory, gone long before its light reaches us, living on as reproductions in a series of dreams, lit up by leaves, all that is left of us here. Just want to see how I'm doing for time here. Yeah, I'm all right. Ooh, I'm running out of time. This is called The Consciousness of Trees. I'm obsessed with trees, so I'm kind of a tree hugger. I like to go for walks and literally I just hug trees until I feel their energy in me, and it really does a lot to revive me, and I believe in that there's some kind of energy in trees that we can talk to and communicate with. And I believe that plants have consciousness of some sort. The Consciousness of Trees, this is about the panda, which is probably the oldest tree living. It's about 80,000 years old. It's off in Utah. And it looks like a grove of aspens, but it's not a grove of multiple aspens. It's one thing. It's one tree. And they communicate through a fungal network in the ground. It's really, aspens are pretty amazing. You can think of it like hairs on your head. You're a single organism, but there are all these, trees that come out of this one single organism, and they talk to each other. The Consciousness of Trees. Aggregate of memory. A root web spans the underground for miles. Metaphysical threads propelled from aspen. A single mind, a voice, spreading as if by fingers, connecting over the centuries, the way an animal's vibrasi connects it back to the mothership. Some humans have vestigial vimbracil muscles in their lips, mystacial made mystical, making the beard an enchantment, a connection, so that I sneeze every time I pluck an eyebrow. I held a spider on my fingertip and watched it create the wisp of silk that carried it away. Poof! Stabulamentum among the aspen branches, bright white and spiraling into the web, and the spider in the thought of the tree is all come hither. Stabulamentum memento, memento mori. Or is it momentum? Death is in the keeping here, life in the setting out. All right. I'm gonna time myself a little bit here. This is called seed. If it is there, it is as all, seed coat and endosperm, seed leaf and stem, all curled inside, barely green, an embryo, an ear, as if a boat sets sail within the ear. In the cold night, where or there of the earth am I? Planting a seed is an intimate subversion. It creates a bridge between one world and the next, and where of the wave-shaped murmuration of starlings searching, they draft and break the crevices away. Fortitude out of all, grace and birdsong spiraling into the sky, and the earth remediated in pauses and interstices where we recorded all that we had to say. I'm just going to quickly look at my time here. There we go. All right. This poem is called I Am a Tree. I am a tree. I am a tree, and my back is the expanding root system in the leaf moving light. Look how this wind picks up now, and my limbs lengthen into saplings, my rib cage, a leaf canopy, a shelter to all. My heart, a chlorophyll geode that feeds birds, transducing metaphor into energy, restoring cyclical tributaries, a trance dance transcendent of memory. One day I will grow pale leaves from my fingertips. Grow me, and I will grow you, grace endured, cheek folding into bark. Okay. And let's skip to the back here. This is called Swallows and Damsel Flies. I'm going to read this in one more poem. Okay. Two? Okay. Swallows and damselflies. Evening and the violet-green swallows descend, unraveling the day's sky. They are shape-changing cloud of no maker, drafting, spiraling, breaking away, bright wings hardly moving as they devour astronaut spiders in their silken arachno flight. Wisps in the light caught in hunger give them time. They will tear their holes into the Anthropocene. Damselfly, she sits on my eyelash, her iridescent voguing. Why trace this distance now? In the pond water up to my chin, paired damselflies cartwheel past in their mating dance, bending, arching into the sky, then swept off their ecstasies by these birds, swallowed in an instant, cobalt flashing, glassy wings fast as a prison lighter. I can see the dark interstices from here. It is like this a little, just a little bit sometimes, as if to say. So a couple more that are coming up. I'm hard at work on a book right now, which is going to be called Earth Lightly. What? Earth Lightly. Yeah, why not? I'm going to have a poem about bees and this one. This is a longer poem that I'm writing. I'm only going to read a small part of it. And it's about a photographer who I really admire named Anne Brigman. She was kind of early 20th century, friend of Stieglitz. She was actually his muse before he met Georgia O'Keeffe. And she's famous for taking these photographs of herself, these naked self-portraits in the Sierras, often against wind-blasted trees and rock. And her photos are exquisite. Her negatives are like the most perfect negatives ever. And they're just very rich in detail and beauty. So I've been writing a lot about her and her relationship to the natural world and her role as kind of an explorer and a pioneer. So this is called Wind-Blasted Cedar in the Sierras. 1. A mouse, crouched in the crook of the tree root, smallest of them all, eyes bright, holds the history and fate of the Sierra Nevada in its pounding heartbeat. An inward song, a mouse of faunal threademy that drifts imperceptible over these pines now covered in an unseasonal snow. A lone, lunging tree and red-tailed hawks circling, pine martens chasing each other in the wind-blasted branches, and the mule deer there in their bloody velvets. 2. It is theater, and the dying cedar is a green room for mice. Anne Brigman would take the stagecoach toward Echo Lake or Downer Pass, then hike into Desolation Wilderness with her camera. Working with her sisters, they would compose their bare-breasted portraits against granite and dying trees, crouching in paper crowns and cheap drapery. Exposure, stillness, and struggle. 3. Biologists say that after arriving in a new place, we will have replaced the entirety of the water in our bodies with that of the local watershed in just a few days. Geography carries its own energetic signature scrawled in the body. Footprints melting in snow, it leaves traces in us. The object of my dream doesn't exist yet. No, it exists always. It existed even before me. There and here, the wild, unclaimable crest of the Sierras soars as if in Anne Brigman's arms, a part of her body. 4. Brigman's negatives were famously perfect, exquisite miniatures in reverse, backing away. But there is one, marked with what look like the footprints of mice, frantic silver skittering away with it. All right, one last poem. This one is about bees. It's called Swarming, and I actually did take part in gathering up a swarm once, although I was not quite as brave as this poem might make me. Yeah. And the bees, when they're swarming, are actually really docile. They're really tame. They are very unlikely to sting you because they have nothing to protect. And you can actually, dive your hands in and scoop them up and put them in the boxes. But you have to do that very slowly. And you just have to kind of keep yourself calm. And finally I did kind of reach in and pick them up, and they were just there in my hands. And bloody incredible. I love bees. Okay, swarming. Ghost mask shaped by the patterns of the day's breath. The swarm clouds through the treetops. It is a migration, a passage. They have left the originating organism, coming apart, forging a new world, a hive. The bees are all shadow and light, the imagination's micro-vibration. Smear of silver, backlit by the sinking red of the sun, clustering around the queen, festooning. She is a veritable Victoria, and they hang to one another's legs and arms surrounding her, a net of bright, wild aerialists, flying Walendas, grasping hand to foot. A made thing, they are a web of composed biology, settling, then bearding about a branch. reach my bare arms into their cloud and feel the hundreds of tarsal claws, tiny prickings on my skin, heat and the weight of their wings dusting my skin. They won't sting. There's nothing to fear. They won't. The swarm is homeless, no rich comb yet to guard, and their bellies are filled with too much honey to care. They might ride my hair. I could scoop them sticky from their swarm cluster and shake them placidly into the bee box, and they won't be parted. They are one thing, one mind. Chains of linked bees will stretch from hand to hand into the universe they make. I could draw their mass to my face, and they will allow. Wings to cheekbone, dust. Unravel the stories that enclose you. Dream yourself out of it. Become again the magician the world hopes you will forget that you are. And the bee on my brow looks into my eye with its compound eyes. Movement, then nothing. Outside of, in the ring of, wind tossing the black cohosh fairy candles, humming they are, we are set free by sunlight.
Thank you, Ms. Mercury. Business, next month, Kevin Gallagher will be here with the Spoke Review, we're calling it. He said he wanted to do it in the manner of the Rolling Thunder Review. So it's going to be all sorts of people that he's going to select and bring in. And then the December reading, the now annual Emily Dickinson birthday weekend reading, it's going to be Martha Collins here for the afternoon, reading from her new work. Stuff with hopefully a nice fire and a cold winter outside. I think that's all the business. Oh, I know one other thing is that Keith and Rosemary Waldrop are reading Monday night, if you're not aware of this, at the Blacksmith House, 8 o'clock at Blacksmith House. And I know Christina's got something going on at Harvard at the same time, Anna Boyer and somebody else at 6, so if you want to really ravish yourself with poetry. One of the things, as I set out to do this reading series, this is the 4th season, that I wanted to mark was the people in the area that I was aware of that were moving amongst us, doing yeoman's work. And my first up was to put Bill Corbett and Garrett Lansing here because of the concentric circles that the two of them created around themselves in very, very different ways. And I've tried over the seasons to bring the people that I'm aware of, that other people, younger poets, might not be aware of, for the amount of work that they have done. And there's been a couple of people that, going back as far as my word of mouth series, that I missed. You're one of them. I was aware of you. I knew you were doing something and never grasped hold of Mark to bring him into word of mouth. And so you've been on my radar to get in here since I started working again. You can look up, most of you know Mark's bibliography, 9 books, but the amount of work that you have done, which stretches all the way back to being a student with Levertov and then being in the circles around her and coming forward to bring that energy, is no small thing. And you've been at it now for what, 50 plus years, and as
I'm feeling older and older.
yeah, well, aren't we all? But as everybody in the room, I know how many artists are sitting here that are working away. I mean, the challenge is to keep going. And you keep going in the face of wonderful afternoons and success, and you keep going in the face of absolute disasters, and you have to. You keep going. And I used to argue with Mr. Corbett, since I'm bringing him up a lot today, because I'm thinking of him, I think. But Bill said, there's no poetry scene in Boston. And I kept saying, no, that's not true. It is hard to see. There's so much going on, and there's some stuff that seems authorized in ways that we aren't authorized, and you can kvetch about it any number of ways. But in the midst of that are absolute treasure houses, which is what you are between your work, your press, and your presence at readings. And it is a absolute honor to have you here this afternoon. Please welcome Mark.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. For inviting me. You have the number of my authors, so you have Paul Violi at the Word in Charles North, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I had the great pleasure of publishing 2 of Bill's last books, actually.
Gorgeous things.
Which is great, fun. So and I have a Levertov piece in the New Spoke, actually. I don't know if I'll read here or in the Grove. He hasn't told me where. It's a little bit different for me because it's called Hanging Loose with Denise Levertov. She was a contributing editor of my magazine, Hanging Loose, for 25 years. And it was a complicated history, let's just say. and which I tried to capture in this piece. So we'll see how that works out. It was a delight to hear your poems. And now I've totally changed what I'm going to read today. So I write lots of different kinds of poems. I was going to start out by reading a whole bunch of political poems that I wrote probably 15 years ago, but they all seem to be relevant again. But I also write a lot of nature poems, and my son is a beekeeper. I think this year we finally got his first honey.
Harvest.
The first time. He had a couple of years there where he would lose, the hives would get to March and then they would die.
Wait, whose hives?
His hives, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they would almost survive the winter and then collapse. 2 or 3 years in a row, and then finally this year.
No.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Where are the hives?
Where are they?
he lives in
Bellingham.
Bellingham, Mass, where the Rhode Island border.
Oh my God.
It's
Maybe I'll visit
two
someday.
hives, yeah. But yeah, it's wonderful. I've always wanted to
Welcome,
be
Miss Isabel.
a beekeeper, actually, but I live in Cambridge.
I'm trying to figure out.
And
where
Mary
to
won't
make
let me
this
have
happen.
one in our tiny backyard. You know,
Well, the
our
yard
backyard's
is too
about this
small.
size.
We have friends
So-
who will never come there if we have bees.
Well, I have a
Which is a
landlord
problem.
who vetoed my bees,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping to move this next
Yeah.
year, and we'll see where that takes me.
So I always like to start with this poem, which is kind of a ars poetica, and over my career, I've written lots of poems that are appropriations and found material in many poems, and so this poem sort of addresses that. Begins with an epigraph. Tony Bennett said it was Frank Sinatra who told him, "Steal from one person and it's plagiarism, steal from everybody and it's research." It was called Do's and Don'ts. And it's got a lot of quotes. It's got Ezra Pound, Kenneth Tynan, C.S. Lewis, Ornette Coleman. I'm quoting a lot of people here, Chuck Close, all this kind of people. Anyway, Do's and Don'ts. Keep a strict eye on eulogistic and dislogistic adjectives, C.S. Lewis advised Kenneth Tynan. They should diagnose, not merely blame, and distinguish, not merely praise. Almost any noun is better alone than chaperoned if it is the right noun, and very few can stand 2 adjectives. Ezra Pound to Parker Tyler, 1935. Unsettled dream is stronger than unsettled white dream. Precision and economy of language are virtues when writing poems, but difficult to put into practice. It's more important, Ornette Coleman once said, to play the correct feeling than the correct note. Some of the time, to quote Chuck Close, you know you're cooking. The rest of the time, you just do it. Or as the Handbook on Improvisation for Church Organ advises, don't be afraid of being wrong, just be afraid of being uninteresting. So I think I will read, totally unprepared for this now. One of my inspirations has been Basha. I write a lot of poetic journals, so combinations of prose and kind of observational poems. And a lot of them I write in Maine in the summer when we go to the coast of Maine, and I also write them on the Red Line, commuting to work. So that's kind of the range of my interests, I guess. So I'll read this one. It's called "With Apologies to Rilke," and it has an epigraph, from his famous poem, the archaic torso of Apollo, which ends, with the phrase, "You must change your life." So in German, the original, it's "Du musst dein Leben ändern." And so I apologize because I changed it to, I have to change my life. Ich muss mein Leben ändern. 3 parts. 1, 5 a.m. dark, ruckus of house sparrows nesting in bedroom air conditioner, tinkle of porch wind chimes, kitchen fridge hum, toilet flush, water coursing through pipes, gurgle and burp of coffee maker, heels clicking down against hardwood floor downstairs, distant church bells gong, all distract, but only momentarily from the mice gnawing in my mind's attic. Ich muss mein Leben ändern. 2, Tea station. Boss? I ain't got no boss, one metro hawker is saying to another, as I hurry past to catch my train. I ain't got no boss, I got supervisors. I got supervisors, I ain't got no boss. 3, Red Line inbound. Eyes wander to banner ads across the aisle above the window. One in bold lettering inquires, "Do you worry a lot?" Yes, I admit I do. Feel nervous most of the time? Feel anxious in social or performance situations? That's me. Have distress, flashbacks, or nightmares from trauma? Not from trauma. Are you anxious? Bingo. Call 866-44-WORRY. Ich muss mein Leben ändern. So here's a poem that one of the poetic journals, it's from a section called Pine Pillow Book. And yes, there it is. It's called A Bold Coast Idol. So Mary and I vacation on the Bold Coast, which is, if you drive up the coast of Maine to the Canadian border, right at the most easterly point in the United States, that's the Bold Coast. It's a beautiful place. And it's sort of a play on, so there's idol and idol. There's bees in this poem. I'm a mushroom forager, so I have a deep, close relationship with trees, because pretty much all mushrooms have relationships with trees, mycorrhizals. There's Hen of the Woods mentioned here. Joe Torre and I are always competing on Facebook.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. I keep asking him to show me where they are, and he's like, no.
So Hen of the Woods, Chicken of the Woods, Old Man of the Woods, Turkey Tails, Fairy Cups, and Witch's Butter are all common names in this poem. Bold Coast Idol. So much depends upon this lobster boat anchored between islands sporting piney crowns, too small for habitation, each no bigger than the boat itself. Gentle breezes dimpling the bay, incoming tide nibbling the pebbled shore. Not wasps, bumblebees, not yellow jackets, nuzzled deep in jewelweed horns, Fluted orange skirts snugly fitted around the fat black bellies, bobbing as one on slender green threads, bees and blossoms. Hen of the woods, chicken of the woods, old man of the woods, turkey tail, fairy cup, witch's butter, not tippler's bane, lawyer's wig, aka shaggy mane. Monarch, not viceroy, mourning, not mourning cloak. Black point, sandy point, long point, otter point, fairy head, eastern nubble, bold coast. Lazing on rocky beach, book open on lap, my only companion all afternoon the sea, shuffling its deck of cards. Idle, not idle. I have a series of short poems. I had a chapbook that's included in here called Natural Histories. And so it's got this kind of poetic sequence in it. So the great Japanese woodblock painter, Utamaro, I had a copy of this reproduction, a museum copy of a book of his called The Chorus of Birds and Insects. And there are just these beautiful prints with the focus is the natural setting where birds and insects are really the primary focus of the print. And so as he created different panels for this book, I have different panels in my poem. And it begins with an epigraph from a critic who was describing the aesthetic of the Ihon, the Japanese artist book. Not to disclose the timeless, but to discern the transient, to clasp the texture of experience, a passing moment, an instant's glimpse, a sensation. Panel 1. Bordering train tracks, an undulating green sea of weeds and tall grasses, with flecks of white foam, Queen Anne's lace at the wave crests. Panel 2. Oak leaves pressed to black asphalt in a decorative motif ring this puddle in which 3 sparrows' ruffling feathers clash excitedly. Cheep, cheep, cheep. Panel 3. Mold-mottled grape leaves on backyard trellis, formerly arrayed as in wallpaper designs by William Morris, curly tendrils and crisscrossed vines showing through on which perch plump sparrows testing pendant fruits' ripeness. Panel 4. Hydrangea blossoms, opened and opening. This one blue, that one pink, another magenta. Petals slowly bruising from the edges inward toward creamy white centers. On every nodding stalk but this one, that pruning shears missed, on which still hang last season's rust-stained crinolines. Ink black thumb smudges on otherwise white fur, this crouching cat, muscles tensed, balanced atop chain link fence, face to face with gray squirrel, its tail erect. 2 trains on a collision course, fur soon to fly. 6. A carpet of bluebells spread beneath Forsythia's golden crown, whose bowed branches so recently bore the weight of new fallen snow. Along the grape arbor, black heads have erupted along the blistered skin of last season's vines. 7. In the thorny tangle of trellised bramble roses, a trio of squabbling sparrows squawk, peck, bat their wings. Neighborhood tabby, the only other spectator, squatting on matted grass beneath, casts a knowing glance in my direction. Brother squirrel, perched on haunches, nibbling the edges of a just plucked mushroom, can't you hear my empty stomach grumble? Not the grackle feathers splayed in a fan bottom side up on the flattened backyard grass which a hen needs mowing, left as a present by neighbor Renee's white Turkish cat. Not that, but rather this moth, Catocala inubans, expired, belly up, just inside my front porch door, itself a gift, underwings showing to advantage the concentric bands, jack-o'-lantern orange alternating with brown velvet, signature of its family, hence the name Beautiful Below. And finally, Envoy, seated under grape arbor with notebook open, like old Fabre at his Harmas in Serenade, quote, setting down the days. Here too, quote, the common wasp and the polites are my dinner guests. Right now they visit my table to see if the grapes served are as ripe as they look. I have no idea.
There you go.
It's anarchy here, you know.
We're happy.
Yes. I want to read this poem, it's a couple new poems I wrote this summer. This one I'm dedicating to my friends Jim and Linda who are here. It's so it references the song "On the Road Again," the Willie Nelson version. On the road again. Coastal Route 1 north of Ellsworth. Willie Nelson on the radio. Going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. A tree-lined dipsy-doodle slalom run stretching all the way to the vanishing point. That narrows to a hiccupy, frost-heaved two-lane, its gravel shoulders calving. Cresting one hill, pooled fog. Cresting another, quicksilver mirage washouts. Sun-baked quill cakes the crows peck at line the highway, and reeds massed in ditches threaten invasion. Downshifting 18-wheelers, their cab stacks burping, leave tire-peeled detritus and rubber-burned graffiti signatures. In fields, riots of daisies encroach upon abandoned sheds that sans windows or doors threaten collapse. 1 minute, beaded paw prints clamber up the windshield. The next, tail-light beacons beckon through ground fog. Mile marker after mile marker ticked off, until your mind resembles a creased and wrinkled road map that, once spread out, refuses to fall neatly back up. And I can't wait to get back on that road again. I think of myself as a mushroom whisperer and a wildflower whisperer. So this is a poem of wildflowers. Field guide. Wear it as a badge of pride, black-eyed Susan. Yarrow, be true to yourself. Don't put on airs like Queen Anne's lace. Butter and eggs, bird's foot trefoil, short or tall, you're each appealing in your own way. So sorry, loose strife, mistook you for fireweed. Thistle, must you always be so prickly? Jack in the pulpit, just the place for you. Cowvetch, any relation to sow thistle? Learn to respect differences, St. John's wort. Not every flower can be lily white. Don't crowd beach rose. Respect jewelweed's space. If Mullen wants to be a loner, that's Mullen's prerogative. Pushy doesn't become you, goldenrod. Tansy was here first. Impatience, that moniker suits you. as does yours, bittersweet. Evening primrose, allow me to introduce you to morning glory. Okay, touch-me-nots, be that way if you must. Calypso orchard, meet Quaker ladies. Quaker ladies, meet Venus's pride. Blue violet, yellow violet, purple violet, white trillium, red trillium, it's all in the name. Dutchman's breeches and lady's slipper, monk's hood and lady's tresses, all are fitting additions to the Canterbury Tales. Maybe I'll finish with City Bone. So when I was working full-time, I was in the habit of taking a bus from my house to Harvard Square and then catching the red line across the harbor, across the city to the Harvard campus at UMass where I taught. But I'd always stop in Harvard Square and go to a coffee shop and write for half an hour before I got on the red line. And I was there pretty early in the morning, so it was kind of me and the homeless people waking up. And I got to feel like, I was kind of part of their community. So this is called Among the Colleagues. And it begins, before descending into the subway's maw, before facing the mess on my desk. Shop grates drawn, sleepers stretched out on benches, in doorways just beginning to stir. But already someone with a broom has gathered fallen buds into neat piles on the square's red bricks. Heaps of fairy goblets on long green stems, left over from yesterday's celebrations. Morris dancers in knickers, jangling ankle bells, clacking sticks. Already this early at his coffee shop station, the self-appointed doorman, straggly hair, beard gray flecked with white, paper cup in one hand. Patrons drop in their coins, no words exchanged. His vest and trench coat bulging with rolled newspapers. Slips of paper crumpled in shirt pocket. Is he bum, bard, or bodhisattva? Yesterday I saw red-eyed Sappho stumble along the sidewalk oblivious to the crush, office workers headed home. Her gaze downcast, mumbling verses as she passed shops with pansies in window boxes and recessed doorways. From their shadows, satyrs and sirens, her familiars, leaned forward, greeted her. This morning, leather-skinned Lebo staggers past, scattering pigeons, ending a night filled, no doubt, with wine and song. Strands of hair peeking from under knit cap, he lurches from one lamppost to the next, embraces one as a long-lost friend, spits curses, motherfucker, at another as at a sworn enemy, motherfucker. Early patrons at tables of the not yet opened outdoor cafe, my confreres, ruddy-faced men in hand-me-down work boots, coats half-buttoned, sweatshirts showing beneath. White-bearded Walt Whitman shares a cigarette with someone who could be his twin. Nearby Basho, tonsured, in need of a shave, scans yesterday's headlines. At his feet, 2 plastic bags stuffed with only he knows what. And just back from the west, Bo Chui sits under a shade tree in New Leaf, his one crutch propped against the trunk, scribbling poems on scraps of paper, which he neatly stuffs into his breast pocket. Finally, here's portly Marx, parked beside cardboard boxes of books and in a shopping cart, his movable library. Signature beard splayed on chest, eyes fixed on a book propped open on his belly, deep in conversation with himself. Something just audible about oil prices, simpler times, bosses. One moment serious, holding up both sides of the argument, the next chuckling to himself, amused. Before descending into the subway's maw, before facing the mess on my desk, such these May mornings, such is the company I keep. Thank you. questions for me?
Thank you both. Again,
Thank you everyone for
absolutely
coming.
wonderful.
This was nice.
We have nowhere we have to be, so
Yeah, yeah.
make yourselves at home.
I was glad I did.
I'd like to swap books with you, and let's do a book
Yeah,
swap,
yeah.
definitely.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Remember when Bunting read it, Corbett hosted?